Hello and welcome to another in a series of debates between candidates for seats on Greenville City Council. I am Lisa Ellison, co-founder and editor of the Greenville Guardian at greenvilleguardian.org. We are a nonprofit, independent online newspaper supported entirely by reader donations, and it is our readers' generous support of public discourse in addressing local issues that has made the staging of these debates possible. In a moment, I'll review the format and ground rules for today's debate, but first, let's meet our questioners and the candidates. Our first questioner is Dennis Mitchell. Dennis served on City Council from 2011 to 2013, holding the at-large seat. We at The Guardian believe his experience on council makes him uniquely qualified for his role this fall as The Guardian's special correspondent covering the municipal election. Good afternoon, Dennis.
Good afternoon.
Our second questioner is Don Cavallini. Though Don's accent will immediately disabuse you of any assumption that he is a Greenville native, he has lived here for 30 years and is a graduate of the master's program in rehabilitation counseling at East Carolina University. A tireless activist, he is co-chair of the Pitt County Coalition Against Racism and is serving his first term as a member of the Greenville Housing Authority, a city-run commission charged with promoting safe, sanitary public housing in Greenville. Welcome, Don.
Thank you.
And now, your at-large candidates for City Council. Incumbent Calvin Mercer is seeking his fifth two-year term on City Council. After serving 3 consecutive terms as District 4 representative beginning in 2007, Mercer challenged incumbent Dennis Mitchell for the at-large seat in 2013 and won by just 402 votes, less than 4 percentage points. Mercer directs ECU's Religious Studies program in the Thomas Harriot College of Arts and Sciences. Challenger Erik Anderson has been active in Pitt County politics for several years, most recently challenging longtime U.S. Representative Walter B. Jones for his congressional seat in 2012. A Wisconsin native raised in Chicago, Anderson served in the Marine Corps for 5 years and was honorably discharged in 2005. He earned his associate's degree at Craven Community College and a bachelor's in history with a minor in politics from East Carolina University here in Greenville. A second challenger, Angela Shackelford Williams, did not respond to numerous invitations to participate in today's debate. Before we begin, a little about the seat these candidates are seeking. The at-large seat is unlike any other on City Council. Its holder serves all of Greenville, while the district representatives to council, as their title suggests, serve the population of a distinct area of the city. The at-large councilors' only boundaries are the city limits. And while the 7th seat on the council, the mayor's seat, it also answers to the whole city, it is not guaranteed a vote on every issue, voting only in the case of a tie. The at-large councilor does vote on every issue and is therefore the most consistent speaker on behalf of the largest number of those with interests in the city, whether those interests are residential, commercial, or recreational in nature. Today, our goal is to draw out these candidates on the most critical issues facing Greenville as a whole and on their strategies for addressing those issues. Our debate will be conducted in a minimum of 6 rounds, each of which will begin when a new question is posed. Our 2 questioners will alternate, with Dennis Mitchell posing the first question to begin round 1. The questions must be answerable by both candidates. We are concerned with the issues related to governing those who live, work, and play in Greenville. Questions pertaining to only one candidate's experience, behavior, or their personal life are not on the table. Though I don't expect doing so will be necessary, I will intervene if I believe either candidate is making things personal in any way. After a question has been posed, the first respondent will have 3 minutes to answer. The other candidate then gets 3 minutes as well. Then it's back to the first respondent for a 90-second rebuttal. And finally, back to their opponent for their 90-second rebuttal. The round is then over and a new round begins when a new question from the other questioner is asked. The candidate responding first in each round will alternate, just as the questioners do. As determined by a coin flip a few minutes ago, Calvin Mercer will respond first in round 1. I will keep time for the responses and rebuttals and will give a sign when 30 seconds are left, so candidates know they must wrap up. I will also cut off candidates if they exceed their allotted time. We have allotted roughly 55 minutes for questions and answers, and we'll take a 10-minute break midway through, which I will also be timing. We will resume promptly after 10 minutes have elapsed. Though we will have a minimum of 6 rounds, we will add rounds if time permits, and will wrap up the question portion of the debate after roughly 55 minutes. We will then move to closing statements with both candidates having 3 minutes and the order determined by a coin flip. So, candidates and questioners, are we clear on everything?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, let's begin. Let's stay focused on the issues, and good luck to both of you. Calvin Mercer answers first in this round, and here's Dennis Mitchell with the first question.
Good afternoon. The first question I'd like to give the candidates is, we heard Lisa's a little bit about your biography from Lisa, but we want to give you the opportunity to state in your own words to the people, the citizens of Greenville, why you feel like you're best qualified to serve them as the at-large representative.
Well, thank you for the question. My background, I've been using this campaign to let people know a little bit more about my background. People know my policies. I've been on the council for a number of years, and so I've been using the campaign as to introduce myself in a little more depth to the public, and I think that background gives me a good basis on which to be a good council member. I grew up in Duplin County, about an hour and a half south of here, and on a big farm. And my relatives, aunts, uncles, cousins, were basically small businessmen and women. Pizza Hut, real estate, a country store, a tradition we've unfortunately lost or are losing in our culture. And I learned from that background some of the basic principles that have been very helpful in city council: hard work, fiscal prudence, taking care of the money side of things, working in partnership, good product for your customer. Through the years, I've lived in a lot of different cities. I've seen a lot of different urban patterns, some good, some bad. And I also, through those years, college and after, I helped on and off my mom, who was a small business owner in Beulahville. And I've also, this is something that most people don't know about me, but I've also worked in the private sector for a number of years. I worked part-time in a psychiatric group, and I learned there, or was introduced there, to the often chaotic world of insurance and operating a small business. Medicine is business. And also own some real estate property here in Greenville, and I help now, my brother and sister help advise my mom to manage our property in Duplin County, where we also have rental property, and my wife and I also have property in South Carolina. So that's a varied background. I think that it gives me the kind of background to bring a lot of different perspectives to the work on the council. Okay. But fundamentally, a council member's job is to be transparent, to be in good communication with the citizens, and to set good policy and hire people and support them to do the job.
Erik?
Okay. Thank you very much for coming out today. I really do appreciate this, even though that it is an ECU Saturday. My name is Erik Anderson. I'm running for City Council at large. A few things in my background that weren't mentioned and were mentioned a little bit were that I am a Marine Corps veteran, and I did serve from '99 to 2004, which allowed me the leadership ability to basically run the detachment to Iraq through Cherry Point. So management and managing big operations is something that I'm accustomed to. I've also done things like the Cherry Point Air Show, or the Marine Corps Ball at Cherry Point. Big events, big handlings, and I understand how to manage a lot of people at one time. I am an ECU grad. I did graduate from ECU. My wife is an ECU grad. That's how we met. It was actually at an ECU football game a few years back at a family weekend back in 2005, and we've been together ever since. I have lived and worked in Greenville since basically arriving here at 18, and you know, I've almost hired over 2,000 people for jobs here in Greenville with my work that as a hiring manager for Kohl's department stores back in 2007, where we opened a store, and then for Walmart in 2010, 2011, 2012. I'm currently in a sales and management position now for a large company that does a lot of things, not just locally, but regionally. Transparency is a big issue of mine, and accountability. Those are two big factors, and another big factor in this is growth and jobs. We need well-paying jobs here in Greenville, and I just don't feel like over the last 8 years that the council has brought those good-paying jobs to Greenville. Thank you.
Well, there's nothing to rebut there. I'll just extend my remarks by saying that I've been on the council since 2007, and so I have a track record of working hard for a fiscally prudent way for growth and development, and I can go through year by year and point out multi-million-dollar projects every year since I've been on the council, and communication with the citizens and transparency. So I have a track record, and certainly citizens, I encourage citizens to look at my record and to consider that. I think I've been doing the job, doing it well. I certainly always want to try to improve and want input, but I offer my track record and my background as, I guess, evidence that I think I can continue to do a good job. I'll certainly work hard at it.
90 seconds more.
Okay. Again, I think that the council hasn't done enough to bring jobs to Greenville, and I don't believe over the last 2 years in particular, the raising of taxes over and over and over again is going to lead to more jobs in Greenville. I don't see that happening, and one of the big issues that the council has fought for 4 years over is a 4 to a house or a 3 to a household, which is a silly thing to debate over and over and over again, and it's wasting time. And I feel like over the last 2-3 years that the council has just wasted their time and really struggled to bring jobs to Greenville and really grow Greenville in the way it needs to be grown. We have major economic depression in the west side of Greenville that really isn't being addressed as much as it should be. We have major economic depression over the river, which it isn't being addressed. So these are the things that I want to look for if you were to elect me. Thank you.
In the second round, Erik Anderson will answer first, and Don Cavallini will ask the question.
Good to see you both here. All fast food workers in the state of New York will be paid $15 per hour according to a schedule recently set by the government. Workers in Birmingham, Alabama, of all places, just won a major increase in the minimum wage. And home care workers in Massachusetts won $15 an hour. Whether or not you are elected, what will you do to win a minimum of $15 an hour for every single person that works in the city of Greenville?
Okay. I think personally, looking at Greenville as a whole, I think $15 an hour is too much, to be honest with you. Too much burden on the actual businesses that are really supporting and hiring those individuals. When I ran for Congress in 2012 against Walter Jones, I proposed a $9.50 minimum wage increase. And that would at least allow the businesses to catch back up, especially since we were just going through a major depression. So as it might sound, $15 is awesome, but in reality, it's very difficult for businesses to hire at $15 an hour, especially since the cost of living is manageable at between $9 and $10 an hour. Thank you.
Let me just interrupt here. Since you have a couple of minutes left, would you care to comment on how you might increase it to $9.50, if that's something that you still...
We could, yes, we could pass a city ordinance to do to $9.50, but I would much rather do it through the state government.
Okay. Calvin?
Yes, well, staff, actually, we worked with the staff on this, and staff brought some information to us and a proposal to us, and I actually voted for the motion to have a living wage. And I'm proud to do that. Greenville set an example. It's not uncomplicated. This question is not uncomplicated, but I did that. And so since I've got 3 minutes, I'll just kind of extend the comment in a more general sense and talk about staff, because I'm very, very interested in the issue of our staff. One of the most important jobs of the mayor and the city council is to attract and maintain talent at City Hall at all levels. And I've been very concerned about the exit of top staff in 2012. After the 2011 elections, we lost highly regarded city manager Wayne Bowers, exited this city along with...
Let me stop you there.
Yes.
And get you back on track.
Okay.
Not for city staff, but for the city as a whole. Not just city staff.
Oh, the question is about
Minimum wage
wages for the city as a whole.
For citywide, right.
Oh, I see. Okay. Well, that is a different question. Absolutely is a different question, and certainly can talk about that. The answer to that, I think, is not an uncomplicated answer either, but it has to do with growth and development and competition. And the city as government cannot dictate these kinds of questions in terms of what's paid out in the city. That's set by the market. But what the city can do is, to the degree that we participate in this or have partnerships with the private sector, is we certainly want to have vibrant growth and development. And we've had that. Now, in a political season, you get a whole lot of spin and rhetoric about all the stuff that's been done in the last 2 or 3 years and all that. But I can go through 2009, $14 million Center City project called First Street, $5.5 million in 2011 at Nathaniel Village, a $40 million in the province. So this kind of growth and development that has been occurring for many, many years is what it helps bring competition to the city, and that's what we want. We want a city that attracts business and jobs so that competition can get the minimum wage up.
90-second response?
We could do that as a city, but like I said, I would rather see it done through the state government and not through a city ordinance like that. But it should be done. It's been a long time since we've raised the minimum wage to $7.25, and I think it needs to be done. And that's why I pushed President Obama to talk about that on his second term.
90 seconds, Calvin?
Well, that is I'm certainly willing to look at any topic and any proposal on the table, but I think that's a very I'd have to look at all sides of that before we get into, as a city, that kind of issue. Now, I'm not speaking about what the state government does. That's a separate matter, and Erik and I probably agree on that point. But I certainly think that there's no question in my mind that the best way to lift wages in the city is to stay on the path of growth and development and bring competition to this city so that the market pulls the wages up.
For our third round, Calvin will answer first, and Dennis will ask the question.
How you guys doing again? In an earlier debate, there was a hot topic of finances. So I want to give you both the opportunity to talk about your take on the city's finances as regards to tax increases, or the fact that GUC gave a 15%, decided to instead give our citizens a 15% decrease in the electric rates, but do a 7% increase over the next 5 years, decrease over the next 5 years. And any other things that you think about talking about city finances that you think is prudent in this election, since this has been a hot topic?
Well, that's a question with a lot of different dimensions to it, and I'll just jump in on taxes because, again, it is a political season and there's a lot of bluster and spin and rhetoric out there. Let me just cut through a lot of that with some stuff I've heard on the other media. Since 2007, here's my track record on taxes. Since 2007, I voted to decrease the tax rate 5 cents and increase it 2 cents. That is a net decrease of 3 cents. I'll stand on that record on taxes. Other aspects of finance, look, we have to have in place. One of them, again, I'm repeating what I said in an earlier question. One of the most important things that we can do is have in place a really competent top staff and support them to do their job. And that means in the financial side of things too. We have to have our books in order. We have to have our revenues meeting our expenses. And so, and that means having really excellent work on the financial side. And so I want to always keep pushing for that. Another thing is you have to take care of really big problems. And Bryant Kittrell and I, many years ago, worked together. We both strongly supported a program that didn't get a lot of press and it wasn't sexy, but it was taking care of our retirement obligations, which would have sunk this city if we had not done that. We put in a sustainable program to do that. We've done that with the facilities maintenance program in this last council with good help from some of my colleagues on the council. We've done that with a vehicle replacement fund, which also Councilmember Kittrell and I worked very hard on, and we're starting to do that with streets now. So taking these big issues, big fiscal problems, and putting them in some sort of sustainable mode is extremely important. It's the kind of thing that looks out many years, and it's not easy for politicians to do because the system is almost geared to have us do something that makes a front page news for the next election. But this kind of, I'm very proud of this kind of sustainable, fiscal, responsible stuff projects that we've done. And I see I'm about out of time. So.
Erik?
Can you please repeat the question real quick?
It was just over a general question about finances. You know, we already heard in previous debates people talk about the tax increases, the GUC rate, the difference in philosophies on that, whether it give the whole 15% now or do the 7% over 5 years, and just the overall general philosophy on how the city should manage its finances.
Okay. I'm going to speak a little bit to the GUC issue. I think we addressed my opponent doesn't believe that he's raised taxes these last couple of years. I believe that he has, but let me go back to the GUC issue. The GUC issue is one that is kind of interesting in itself. There's a lot of questions being raised on why we didn't get back as much as we should have, and a lot of other cities like Wilson and New Bern got back more to the individuals. And I kind of agree with both sides on this issue. I do agree that we should have gotten back more than what they're proposing at a 7.1, between 4.9 and 7.1 back to the consumer. I believe it should have been closer to 9 or 10, but I also believe that we need to keep revenue on the books and save for so-called rainy day funds, because I know that we're going into the heart of hurricane season. And with global warming, it's only going to get worse. And we're going into the winter where a lot of trees fall on the lines because we've never really put those lines under the ground. And so we're going into these seasons. So I do believe in keeping money on hand. I don't know. I've heard a lot of different stories. I'd like to hear more from GUC opening their books and making sure that it's totally accountable to the people, because we are the owners of that. It is a co-op. So I'd like to see more transparency when it comes to their particular books and why they need to, and for them to give reasons on why they need to save as much as they have in the bank currently.
Yeah, on the GUC issue, GUC is very run like a business. It's a professionally run organization with an excellent board. Mr. Mitchell's on that board. And the last thing GUC needs, and I don't care if I lose votes on this or not, this is a principled thing. The last thing GUC needs is for politicians around this dais to start getting involved in monthly decisions about rate setting and all of that. Now, GUC made a decision to cut the rate 7%, and then to make a commitment to keep them there for a number of years. I'm all for growth and development and recruiting businesses here, and if you want to recruit businesses here, you don't want to be jerking that up and down. So I'm for that because I think it was a good business decision. I think it was good for recruitment of business. And I also think that that we just don't need to be getting into the business of micromanaging GUC, not the kind of political entanglements that you can get into on the council. So we need that kind of distance, and we need that kind of professionalism to running GUC.
90-second rebuttal.
Sure. Maybe I misspoke, but I didn't say micromanage, but I did say that we as Americans have an obligation to always question leadership. And especially when you're on the city council, you should always be questioning whatever decision it might be that might affect, and it will affect, every single one of us in this room and watching on TV. Thank you.
We'll take one more question before we go into a 10-minute break. Erik Anderson will answer, and will answer first, and Don will ask the question.
And this question comes from a mother concerned about her 24-year-old who happens to be black and male. The lives of men and women, especially those who are black, Latino, and poor, are being destroyed and disrupted by the Pitt County criminal justice system. Yet we hear nothing but silence from most of our city officials. This unfair and unjust treatment by the police and the courts is criminalizing whole groups and neighborhoods. What will you do, whether you're elected or not, to change this injustice?
I think the biggest issue in that is job creation and making sure that everybody is having that affordable and livable wage that you had spoke about earlier. I don't necessarily believe that we should just set a $15 minimum wage, because I don't believe that would fix the problem right away, and it actually might make the problem even worse than it already is. But like I had spoken in my opening comments about developing West Greenville and neighborhoods like that that are underserviced, really. We keep talking about on the council every single debate I've been in about greenways. Well, greenways aren't going to fix jobs in Greenville, aren't going to give that young person a chance, a fighting chance to survive. He may not go to college, and that's okay. We have in this country, we have this idea that everybody has to go to college, and some people don't want to go to college. And right now, the way that America is set up, a lot of times you can't recoup the money that you've spent on your university that you could have been making in livable wages working somewhere. Now, I'm not going to justify and say that working at Walmart is going to give you $1 billion or Kim Kardashian money, but you have to know that we have to, as a council, we have to be making sure that we're providing good livable wage jobs in Greenville to boost those areas up, and making sure that they're taking the right path, that they're knowing that in the future that if I work hard, I can get ahead. My children can have a better life than me. But right now, there are neighborhoods here in Greenville that I don't see that they think that way, that they think that they can get out of that, because it's one minimum wage job after another, and some of them can't even get a job because right now we're fighting over the minimum wage jobs, and if you've ever served any time in jail, nobody's going to hire you. Walmart's not going to hire you. Harris Teeter's not going to hire you. So,
Erik,
sorry.
in your final minute, would you care to say anything about the injustices in the criminal justice system?
I would like to get them not there in the first place. That's my main goal in all of this, is to make sure that they know that they can get out of that. Now, whether or not, and that has a lot to do with that too, the Latino and African American communities, they're seeing that. They're seeing that their neighborhoods really are the most devastated by job loss. And they're seeing others in other neighborhoods get better jobs. Now, I can't really speak for the injustices when they're in incarceration or later on. I think that's what you're asking for. But I can definitely try to help right now before they get to that level with having better schools, safer neighborhoods, well-lit neighborhoods, making sure that the crime rate goes down, making sure that, that they feel like they have an opportunity, that they have a purpose for our society, and making sure that they're going to strive and be better, and they're going to do things for our communities that we wouldn't believe. And I think they really could do that, but we have to make sure that we're providing those jobs. Thank you.
Calvin?
Would you repeat the question one more time?
Sure. Basically, and I'm trying to be straight with the question and not, I'll leave it to the moderator to see whether you're staying on point, even after she urged you to. But the question has to do with the criminal justice system. And the mother is asking, because she has a 24-year-old son who is a survivor of that system, just barely. He's working right now.
Mm-hmm.
But it didn't stop the series of problems he has had by being profiled, wrongly arrested, wrongly charged, and now having to really figure out a way to keep working and comply with the court, the so-called law enforcement. So my question is, we've heard nothing but silence from city officials regarding the injustices, the profiling, and then the things that come once you are in fact in front of a judge. So it's criminalizing whole groups and really hurting neighborhoods. What would you do, whether elected or not, to change this injustice?
Well, I'm pained always and saddened when I hear any report of an injustice, and I know we don't live in an ideal world, and we have that, but it really is painful to hear that sort of thing. The one I listened very carefully to the question. Now, you're talking about a system, and the system can include law enforcement, and then moving into the court system. Anything that, when you said arrest and charge, of course, that has to do with the officer who's doing that, whether it's a deputy or whether it's a police officer, and that certainly comes under the purview of the city. And I'm very, very interested in that kind of thing. If there's any inappropriate situation or any appropriate incident, what I would like is I would like a date, time, names, and then I would like to follow up on that with our staff. We have an investigative unit within our police department that looks into these things, and if that's not functioning well and that's not happening, then I'm very interested in getting engaged in that. I'm not interested in micromanaging that, but it is my job to make sure the system is working properly. Now, when it gets into the court system, and again, this may sound like I'm trying to dodge responsibility here, but one of the things, just to help folks understand, one of the things that I found that helps at least me as a council member be effective is to have a laser focus on those issues and those questions that the city council can actually do something about, and not get entangled in state and national issues that I really can't do anything about as an elected official in Greenville. And so if there's situations in the Pitt County court system and in the jail system, then I'm very interested in that as a private citizen, and I'd like to know about it. I'd like to know who is in charge over there, so that when I go vote or when I talk to my friends, I can have an impact on that. Now, stepping back from those two kind of specific responses, I think in general, the way I think about our criminal justice system and law enforcement is I really kind of wanted to have two approaches. One is I wanted to be able to be tough and traditional and kind of hard when it needs to be, but I also want as a private citizen, I'd like the court system to have and the legal system, and I'd like the city police system to also have a heart, have a sensitivity, have an appreciation of the plight of people, and work on prevention and work on dealing with people in a humane way. And I think sometimes there needs to be hard traditional enforcement to keep our neighborhoods safe, but that's not all we need. And I think
Wrap up, please.
Okay, thank you.
90-second rebuttal.
Okay. I think this is getting touched up on. One big thing that we could do as a city is issue body cameras, but they're very expensive and it will cost money. The state and the federal government are looking into giving us grants for these tools. But that's not the only tool that we need to make sure that we're doing. We need to make sure that we are doing more community engagement with officers, not just police, being shown a force, but actually engaging the community, seeing what needs to be done, if there's houses that need to be looked at, or community watch programs. I believe in those things, and I believe that they make our community better. Thank you.
90-second response.
Oh, sorry, I forgot. Well, on many of these points, Eric and I totally agree, and I certainly think it's not a direct response to the question, but it's related, I think, is that increasingly I have come to feel that the work we do with the youth in our society is I don't mind using this word, is holy work. And I think that's on the side of prevention, and the more success that we can have in that realm, the less these kinds of problems occur in the system that have to be addressed. It's not a complete solution, but it certainly relates, and that's hard work. But it's important that we all do it. And the city and the city government cannot take the place of family or faith community, but the city certainly wants to be a partner in that, should be a partner in that where it can and where it's appropriate.
We'll come back for the fifth round after a 10-minute break. For those of you who are here in council chambers today, you'll find note cards out in the foyer if you would like to submit a question for the candidates. I can't promise that we'll get to it, but please hand it to the questioners of the debate today if you would like for them to consider it. Thank you. 10 minutes. Welcome back. We are on our fifth round of the at-large debate. Calvin Mercer will answer this question first, and Dennis will ask it.
Good afternoon again, gentlemen. This question is an email question I had in. As a candidate, what position do you take on help fighting homelessness in Greenville and Pitt County? And what opportunities do you see for the city to partner and support Greenville's homeless center?
No, that's a great question. Again, it's the kind of question that saddens me that we even have to ask that question. It certainly certainly painful to know that we have homeless people here anywhere in America, and certainly in our city. I remember when I was a little boy, I probably was, I don't know, 6 or 7 years old. My family and I took a vacation to Atlanta. We were driving through downtown Atlanta, and I was looking out the window of the car, and I saw this man on the street, and he was clearly, now I know he was a homeless man, and I looked at, he was, you know, in a kind of a crumpled position on the street, and his clothes were torn and tattered. And I remember as a little boy asking my mom and daddy, because I'd never seen anything like that. I said, you know, what is that, or why is that person out there like that? And that's just one of my images from a little kid. I mean, it brings tears to my eyes to even think about it now, because it, you know, I realized that, you know, I was growing up fast, I guess, and realized this is not a wonderful world for everyone. So anyway, it's a tough thing to think about in our city, and we certainly need to pay attention to it. I was involved. It's been many years now. I was involved in that effort a number of years ago to end homelessness, and so it's been something that's been an appropriate question to ask through the years. I'm very, very pleased at the progress that our homeless shelter has made in recent times. I've been very, very pleased to see businesses and other organizations step up and help with that. To the specific question of the city's role, the city, there's different philosophies about how the city works with nonprofit organizations. Okay, so just to put this in a context, there can be a model. I'm willing to look at any model and debate it and see what the community wants to do, but there, you know, one model would be that the city supports and gives money and engages actively with nonprofits. There are certainly lots of nonprofits out there. Our homeless program is one. Okay, 3 means 30 seconds, I found out. In our model that we currently use, the city does not do that, because we would, you know, who do we pick and choose? But certainly there are ways, kind of informal ways and formal ways, through zoning regulations, helping out with land use plans and things like that, that the city can participate and support a worthy program like a homeless shelter. And we've done that in this one. And there's a couple of events coming up, I think, with our homeless shelter. I'm looking forward to attending those. So now my 30 seconds is up. So.
Erik?
Mr. Mitchell, can you please repeat the question, because I don't think it was answered.
Hold on. As a candidate, what position do you take on helping fighting homelessness in Greenville and Pitt County? And what opportunities do you see for the city to partner and support Greenville's homeless center?
Okay. There's two parts to that, I guess. I guess the first part would be the actual homeless shelter itself. And I think doing it by financially allowing them to have grants, or, you know, taking some of these abandoned houses that we see and making sure that we're working with nonprofit groups like Habitat for Humanity, that I've built some of those houses over there on the west side through that organization, making sure that we're engaging them just as much as they're engaging our city, because we need their help as well, because we can't do it all at city government level. Another aspect, I'm going to go back to this over and over again, is job creation, and making sure that we're finding the right jobs for the right people and good paying jobs, and making sure that we're not overtaxing businesses to the point where they can't come in here and open up a business because they feel like they just don't have a chance to compete. So to answer your first question, we're going to keep going with you know, trying to make sure that we're doing the best we can to work with nonprofits and making sure that those shelters get built. And the second part of that is jobs, and making sure that those people can find good paying jobs, that they can support a family and live in their house. My story is very different than Mr. Mercer's story. I grew up with a single mom, and we would often have to stay in women's shelters and have to drive around and go from place to place, or boyfriend to boyfriend, So believe me, I know this issue. I know this issue well. She did not have, she had her GED. You know, these are those type of stories that really relate to normal everyday people that don't always get to go to college and have doctorate degrees and master's degrees. So, you know, my parents have pushed for this, but they've always showed me that if you work hard and you play by the rules, that you will get ahead in the system. Thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes I think it's helpful to distinguish between the problem and symptom, and homelessness is a concern in our city, but it's also a symptom, and here I certainly agree with Erik that it's not the solution in every case, but it's certainly, it will help if we can continue on the path of bringing jobs and development to the city that, in a sense, can provide more revenue moving through the city and help hopefully move some people who are in a homeless situation who are capable of jobs into the job market. That certainly is one piece of it. It's not the whole picture, but it's one piece of it. And I've got a few minutes left. So let me just say I really know them, and I appreciate those folks who are working with our local shelter. They've done a great job, and I just really appreciate what they do. Yeah.
Erik, 90 seconds.
Just to reiterate, thank you to all the volunteers that help out in our city, and they need help too. So please do what you can, volunteer anytime, money, canned goods, that kind of thing to help out this issue. We went through a major recession over the last 4 or 5 years, and we're just starting to get out of it, and we just need to make sure that those people that need assistance right now, we get them that assistance. But for the future, we need to make sure that we are providing an environment from the city to create real jobs, not minimum wage jobs, but actual living wage, good paying jobs. Thank you.
For round 6, Erik Anderson will answer first, and Don will ask the question.
And this comes from a city employee, actually 3 of them.
Okay.
Workers for the city of Greenville have told me that they are neither appreciated nor respected. Those in public works especially ask me, and this is a quote, "If you do the job and you do it well, why do we make only $14 an hour after 12 years of service? What would you do, whether elected or not, to remedy this?"
Okay. One of the big things that we've seen in our country overall is that this demography of the actual public service worker, that because they're getting a check from the government, which is taxpayer funded, that they are somewhat less. And I totally am sympathetic to them because a lot of those public service jobs, being a teacher is one of them, that it doesn't pay real well. And the benefits that used to be there, like a really good pension, are not there anymore. So making sure that we are doing everything we can, because I've hired and managed thousands of people, and some of them all at one time, and everybody's got a different issue. Everybody has a different issue with their scheduling or family situations at home, and you as an employer, and they're working for the city of Greenville, and we're on the council for Greenville, we are basically their HR. We're actually everybody's HR for the people, the citizens of Greenville, and making sure that they are well represented. On the pay, we'll have to look at those scales. I know that they've done that with the council for years now. Some I didn't agree with. I didn't agree with giving city council members a raise. And I had actually talked about this with Mr. Mercer, and I didn't agree with that a few years ago, giving the city council members a raise and not giving quite as much to public service workers of Greenville as much of a raise, because I don't believe that the city council really should, it's not there to make money. Of course, your time has to be compensated, but we have to find better ways to approach people and basically speak out for them too, and acknowledge that they're hardworking citizens that we need to make sure that we're taking care of, because they're doing jobs a lot of us don't want to do. I mean, I for one do not want to pick up trash every single day, and I'm glad that they're doing it. And that's a big part. And we're talking about $14 an hour, so it's in the middle range of what a public service worker does. And we have to look at the pay scale as a whole too, because I still think that $160,000 is a little too high. But you're right. After 12 years of service, $14 an hour doesn't sound totally correct. So we have to make sure that we're looking at the whole schedule and making sure that we could fit it into the budget. Thank you.
Calvin, 3 minutes.
Yeah. Well, before I forget it, let me hasten to add that I voted against that pay raise for city council members. In fact, I voted against the whole daggone budget because of that one piece in there, because it came up at the last minute on the night we were supposed to pass the budget, without any indication to the public that it was going to come. And the mayor didn't speak up against it, and all of my council members voted for it, and I voted against it. So I certainly agree with my opponent on that particular one. But anyway, the question has to do with city workers, and it's another question that just is, it saddens me that we even have to ask that question, and that we have to that there are employees that are dissatisfied and do not feel valued in our organization, and there's no question but that we need to constantly and regularly work on that, because the best way to accomplish our mission in this city as a government is to have employees who feel good about their job and who want to come to work and want to do a good job. Now, more specifically, pay is not the only thing in job satisfaction, but it's certainly an important piece of it. And we have on the city council a policy, which I support, of paying at market. In other words, you could choose to pay above market, you could choose to pay below market, or you can pay at market. So we do studies, we do analyses to make sure to see where we are periodically, and then we want to pay at market. That's the policy that we have. I wish we could pay above market, but we don't want to raise taxes any more than we need to. So that's one piece of it. I continue to support that policy. We've just passed a massive revisioning and rewriting of our personnel policies, and there are elements in the policies that allow employees with grievances and with concerns to address those in the system. We certainly need to have modern personnel policies in place that are employee-friendly and that help to address as much as possible that a system can address. And finally, we need to hire people. We need to hire staff, a manager, and she or he needs to hire department heads who are not going to be run out of town because they're micromanaged, but who are top talent, who will want to work here, who will administer fair personnel policies and create a climate and an environment in their departments that employees want to work. So this is hard work. It's not something we can snap our fingers and do overnight, but my time is about out. But those are some of the elements, I think, of addressing any particular employee who is unfortunately dissatisfied in their work in Greenville.
90-second rebuttal.
I think we've pretty much touched up on everything that we can at this moment in time with that issue. We talked about that pay isn't always the number one factor in whether or not an employee is satisfied with their job. We've talked about vacation time, making sure they're getting the correct amount of leave, making sure they're getting the correct amount of making sure they're not overworked. That's another thing that we might need to look at too. Without knowing the particulars of those 3 individuals that you mentioned, we can't really say what was the overall thing, or if it was just that they get paid $14 an hour, because I've worked in an industry where, pay fluctuates from $7.25 an hour to $25 an hour, depending on years of service, what their job is, and in retail. So I understand that, but at the same time, we have to make sure that we're not just going overboard on how much money we're going to spend, because we have to keep it in a budget, because we do not want to raise taxes, because that's the worst thing that we could possibly do, because they could lose their job if we raise the taxes, and we don't have that tax base.
90 seconds.
Yeah, and my net record on taxes is reducing taxes 3 cents. Anyway, so on just a PS on this personnel policy, we went through months. Staff went through months of working up a new personnel policy, modernizing it, and that process included input from employees. In other words, it was an open process. In my understanding, that we wanted staff to do this, an open process where employees had input into that. So what we need to do with that is let it go for a bit, and then we need to keep revisiting that and make sure it's working. And if we keep, getting complaints that it's not working, then we certainly need to go back to the system and tweak it where we can, and continue to encourage the manager needs to continue to work with department heads to make sure they create an environment in our city that is a place that people want to work. I think that a key to that, and again, is having in place top staff who are excellent and who are stable. I think, I'm not saying this is the reason why we get dissatisfaction at the lower levels, but when you have a lot of turnover at the top level, it creates a chaotic situation in an organization. And I'm spoken out about this, and I'll continue to speak out about it, because you cannot have that in an organization and the organization work well.
Thank you. We have time for one more question from Dennis Mitchell, and Calvin Mercer will answer first.
All right, gentlemen, it's December and you've just been sworn in to serve on the next city council. What are your top 3 issues that you hope to tackle? And if you got time, give some specifics on how you would address those issues.
Top 3 issues. Well, it's not really, it's a great question. It's not really a top issue so much, but the first thing I would do is what I did after the 2011 election, and it's what I did after the election 2 years ago. Is I contacted the winners in the various elections, and I said, let's talk. Now, if they were an incumbent, I may have had a good relationship with them, but I sat down in 2011. I called up the mayor, Thomas, and I said, look, we may have our differences going forward, but let's work together. I want to let's meet regularly and work together. So I have tried to do that. I will continue to try to do that with anybody who is elected. Anybody who has worked with me in any of my jobs in the past knows that that's the way I like to get things done. I like to work in partnership. I like to sit down and have good conversation and try to work things out, and I'll continue to try to do that. And that will happen as much as I'm able to make it happen. So that's one thing I'll do. In terms of the top 3 priorities for the next couple of years, one would be to get this bond passed. I think that, we'll know that in November, I guess, so that wouldn't be going forward, but assuming it passes, we'll certainly want to unfold that in the right way, spend the money carefully, borrow the money when we need to, not all at one time. So addressing that bond or implementing that bond in a way that moves our city forward would certainly be one thing. A second thing is I'd like to, and I don't know exactly how to accomplish this in terms of taking a vote on the council, but I promise you, we really need to have an environment and a climate on this city council and an approach to government in this city that attracts and maintains top talent in our city. This turnover that we have is just simply unhealthy for our city. It's unhealthy for our employees, and it's not good for the functioning of the organization. And so I will continue to speak out about in any city where the mayor or council members interferes with staff. That is a problem. So that would be a second thing that if we could pull off in the new council, I would really like to do that. Oh, and I won't get to my third one because I think we're out of time.
You've got 20 seconds.
Oh, 20 seconds. Number 3, I want to continue getting jobs here and growth and development. We've had announced recently some great projects down on Dickinson. That's an area of the city we've got great developer interest in, and we need to keep pushing forward on that front. And as we grow,
Thank you.
we need to build quality into that growth
Thank
so
you,
that
Mr.
we can
Mercer.
sustain that growth over time.
I'll let him finish. Was there something
No,
else
no.
you needed to say?
Eric,
Okay.
your turn.
Okay. Top 3, jobs, jobs, jobs. It's like real estate, location, 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 jobs, jobs, jobs. We have to make sure that we're doing the right plans. And as I support infrastructure reform, raising taxes is not the way I wanted to do it. There are other ways that we could come about that. Making sure our budget is sound is one of the biggest ways. Making sure that we're pushing our state representatives and our federal representatives to make sure that we're funding the correct things that they need to be funding and not taking money out of the transportation, not passing the transportation bills that they need to be passing and doing stuff like that. Every time we raise taxes on people, people tend to either move away or jobs go away too. And a lot of times we don't see those things. As far as, I love road repair, and believe me, but we should have already had that in the budget. And these roads are really bad, some of them. Some of them need repair in other places, and some of them, the roads that really need repair aren't even in this new bill. So I really want to reiterate jobs, 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 because we need to be pushing things like I had talked about in a previous debate about making sure that we're being leaders on the board and making sure that we're, passing city ordinances that would bring jobs here. Like I had talked about a 10-year, and Mr. Mercer actually talked about GUC actually doing this with their facility about solar panels and bringing in, if we pass that ordinance, that city ordinance within 10 or 15 years, we would have a solar manufacturing plant here in Greenville because they know that they have customers, and we would be able to go to the local community colleges and local colleges and making sure that they have programs that will develop a workforce for those solar panels. You have installers, you have repairmen, making sure that as a council we have the leadership ability to look forward and grab new developing jobs, and green jobs is one of those things that I am fully prepared to go after if you were to elect me onto the city council. One of the big things that I keep hearing over and over again on this is that Mr. Mercer really isn't running for this position. He's really running against the mayor. He keeps talking about introducing himself to the public more, and he keeps talking about, well, if
20
I wasn't
seconds.
micromanaging, and losing leadership. Well, I'm not sure how their relationship worked out, and I'm not sure totally why he decided to continue to run for the city council and not
This is
for the mayor.
irrelevant and speculative.
But these things, these fights, they have a lot to do with bringing jobs here and losing people. So thank you.
Time. All right.
Rebuttal.
Yeah, rebuttal.
90-second rebuttal?
Yeah,
Yes,
well,
please.
earlier this week, Erik revealed publicly that the mayor asked him to run against me, and so it is, I think, relevant in that sense. But one of the to go into the fourth, I'll go into a fourth thing. Sometimes what elected officials we want to do is we want to do positive projects, and sometimes what we need to do is keep unhealthy things from happening. And one of the things that I really, really hope, I worry about, but I hope doesn't happen in the next 2 years, is a revisit of an old issue that I hope is passed and doesn't come back, but I worry that the effort to to overturn the 3 unrelated rule and move it across the city in other neighborhoods, if a certain mindset and a certain inclination gets on the majority in the council, that may be a concern. That's a concern I have. It's a big concern I have, and I think there's a rational basis for having that concern. So I hope that doesn't happen, and I guess that would be my fourth goal would be to make sure that doesn't happen, because I don't think that's good for our quality of life, and it's certainly not good for attracting industry and business here when you have that kind of disruptive policy, I think, going citywide.
90 seconds.
Yes, currently on the council, it's a 4-2 with Mr. Mercer's leadership being of a particular group of individuals that have pretty much voted, I would pretty consistently say, every single time with whatever you're voting for. And what's kind of interesting is that this is the most I've heard him speak these last 2 debates, more than I've heard him in 7.5 years being on the city council, especially in front of the cameras. So that's kind of nice to see him do that, and I do applaud him that he is out here doing that. But you know, these kind of squabbles between the mayor and himself have been going on for some time now, and that's why certain people are leaving. And you know, we keep talking about this over and over again. There's a lot of issues, and I just wish you would have ran against him and not for the same position, because that's who you really wanted to run against.
Okay. Well, this completes the question and answer portion of our debate, and it's time for closing statements now. As determined by a coin flip earlier, Calvin Mercer will begin. You have 3 minutes.
Yeah, just a PS to the last one. There have been significant disagreements on the council. This personnel policy that I referred to earlier was actually Councilmember Blackburn and Councilmember Glover. It was a 4-2 vote, but it was a 4-2 with Councilmember Blackman and Councilmember Glover voting together. There was a disagreement. I think it was a 5-1 vote on an important pay issue. There have been various very important annexation and some zoning questions that have come up, Lacey, that did not follow that 4-2 pattern. So I think we have on the council what I would call a loose coalition. There are loose coalitions, no question about that, but that there's a rigid breakout does not fit the voting record of the record. There are people on the council, the 2 new people that came on have very independent minds, and you can certainly engage them in quality conversations about policy and on. My track record is out there, and I'm trying to let people know a little bit more about my own personal background in this campaign. I think that I've been pleased at the response. We had earlier this week, we had a reception on my behalf that was hosted by 2 very prominent businessmen, very well-respected businessmen in our community, Eddie Smith and David Womack. And there were around 200 people, just under 200 people there. That, if you look out into the crowd, it was a nice swath of cross-section of the business, medicine, education, neighborhood leaders and organizers. A number of elected officials were there. Earlier in the year, we had what we called a good government rally at the Hilton in June, and that was well attended, and a very respected elder of our city and a former council member from the 1960s, Dr. Earl Trevathan, gave a long journey through the history of Greenville that was very well received. I've had school teachers contact me. They want the transcript for their classes. So I've been pleased at the response. I really have no political ambitions beyond the city council. I love my job as an educator and working with the young people. And so if I'm not elected, I'll be sad for a day, but I'll get more sleep at night. If I am elected, what I promise is to continue to be transparent, to be incredibly communicative with the citizens of this city, to let them know why I vote the way I vote, and to continue to push hard for fiscal responsibility, growth and development, and transparency. And I have been endorsed.
That was your time.
Oh, may I say one more thing? I have been endorsed by Common Ground, a wonderful organization, and you could check out their endorsement.
Thank you. Eric, 3 minutes for your
Okay,
closing
Common
statement.
Ground is a political action committee that you started. So you getting their endorsement isn't anything new.
I know I won't get a rebuttal to this.
You can rebut that as much as you want, but I'm going to talk about me. My name is Erik Anderson. I'm running for city council at large. It will not take me 8 years to reintroduce myself. You will know me the day one because I am a go-getter. I am somebody that's going to go get those jobs and bring them here to Greenville, whether I have to pull them by their hair and tooth and just bring them here because we need those jobs here in Greenville. We've been kind of deficient in that area for some time now. And we're looking to really build this community. We have to be the star in North Carolina because we will not get help from Raleigh. We will not get help from Charlotte. And that is the I-85 corridor that most state legislators want to give money to. We are not going to get their help. And they've even talked about us losing the School of Medicine. So we have to make sure that we're bringing enough businesses just in case we were not to get a lot of that state money that we currently receive. So my focus, my laser pinpoint focus will be on job creation and pulling those different jobs and manufacturing jobs that we need to bring back, whether it's textiles back to the U.S., whether it's, like I talked about, green energy jobs. We need to be the go-getters here. We need to be the star in North Carolina. And this bickering back and forth between two people is not helping our city at all and is making it more difficult to really run a city. Now, I know that we aren't supposed to be hands-on with the actual day-to-day functions. That's why we hire a city manager. But we also are supposed to oversee and make sure everything is being transparent and visible and making sure that we're all doing the right thing and we're on the same page to make Greenville grow. And that's the biggest thing is growth. And those are things that I will do for the city of Greenville if you were to elect me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Erik Anderson, Calvin Mercer, I thank you both for coming here today and sharing your ideas and for your participation. You've done a great service to the city's voters today, and you have our sincere thanks.
Thank you.
Questioners, fantastic job. Dennis Mitchell, election correspondent for the Greenville Guardian, and Don Cavallini of Pitt County Coalition Against Racism. In closing, the Greenville Guardian sincerely thanks our subscribing readers for making this event possible. Akila Thigpen at Vision on Film for her expert videography services at a generously discounted rate. The City of Greenville staff for their coordination, patience, and hard work. And Steve Johnson at the Minority Voice newspaper and Jake Postma of GPAT TV for their help and coordination. Remember, you can watch rebroadcasts of this debate beginning next Friday, September 25th, and full versions of all debates in this series will air throughout the election campaign at GPAT TV, Channel 23. Check their website, gpattv.org, for scheduling. And be sure to visit greenvilleguardian.org for continuing coverage right through Election Day and to support our nonprofit work in the public interest. I'm Lisa Ellison, co-founder and editor of the Greenville Guardian, thanking everyone here at City Hall and those watching at home for joining us.